back, everyone, to the Real Talk Podcast, and Merry Christmas. This is our last episode before Christmas, so we decided we were going to do a little bit of a Christmas special. We're going to have normal news as usual, along with our weekend box office update, but for our movie that both of us are going to review this week, we're both going to review our individual favorite Christmas movies in the spirit of Christmas season. Joining me on today's podcast, as always, is Mike Gillis. Mike, what's going on?
Merry Christmas, guys. Happy to be back, as always, and I can't wait to talk about my favorite Christmas movie. That's actually going to be pretty cool to be able to do that.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the weekend box office, which was undoubtedly the biggest the number one movie, made the most this year, made the second most all time. And so I'll just list off the top five and we'll give our initial thoughts on the box office. Coming in at number one, to no surprise, is Star Wars The Last Jedi, rolling in with $220 million. Coming in at number two is Ferdinand, making $13.4 million. Coming in at number three is Disney's Coco, making $9.9 million. Coming in at number four is Wonder, taking in another $5.2 million. And rounding out the top five is Justice League, making $4.3 million. Mike, looking at the top five, what stands out?
Well, it's no surprise that Last Jedi is number one by far. I think it
220.
Blew other movies out of the water. It's those other four are practically not even on the list.
Yeah, compared to in the grand scope, their money is
kind of surprised Ferdinand made money.
I mean, I expected it to make money because it was
marketed.
It's an alternative to The Last Jedi. My apologies. And when I say an alternative, I mean you show up at the theater and your tickets are sold out. And if you brought like your kid to see it, you go see Ferdinand instead.
I think I would have taken my kid to see Coco though.
Yeah,
like
but Coco wasn't too far behind, $9.9 million, and it's well into its time at the box office.
Kind of sad to see Disaster Artist go even below Daddy's Home now.
Yeah,
it took a bad
Daddy's
hit.
Home, I feel. Interestingly, Daddy's Home is in at number 6, above Thor Ragnarok, which Thor was above it its entire run up until now, and I think that's just a test because Christmas season, Daddy's Home 2 does have a Christmas theme to it.
It's too bad to see that down there.
Yeah,
I think we're seeing that soon though.
So we'll do a Disaster Artist. I mentioned it, I think, last podcast, but we're gonna do a Disaster Artist review special
with the room
as well, but that won't be the focus. Will be on the Disaster Artist. The room will just be to get prior knowledge.
Yeah, to know about it. Wonder still at number 4?
Number 4, yeah.
That's pretty good. That's been there for a while.
Yeah, it's significantly made back its money and does have its production budget actually hasn't been released, but it's made $155 million worldwide, which is very impressive for a movie with
that caliber.
Didn't have a ton of steam leading up to it. I know it did have a really good marketing campaign, but not many people were talking about this movie up until about a month before its release. I wanted to talk about The Last Jedi real quick, just because, this is something we can't really gloss over. It's the biggest weekend for a movie this year. It's the biggest of the past 2 years, actually. It's the second most all time. Obviously, The Force Awakens made the most with, I believe it's $247 million. And while some people, believe it or not, will look at 220 and be like, well, look at that, less people interested in Star Wars. Dropping $27 million would be a concern to me in the sequel if this was a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
You look at, say, a Captain America, The First Avenger, didn't make a ton of money opening weekend, but versus Captain America, The Winter Soldier, nearly doubled its opening weekend income, and that's because this was an unestablished character. The Force Awakens obviously made more because we had the gap not only between the latest Star Wars movie being 2005 with Revenge of the Sith. Of course, a 10-year gap will get more people in the theaters. Also, this was a continuation of the original saga, so basically the gap, if you even want to go as far to say it was 30 years. So of course, The Last Jedi is going to make less money than The Force Awakens because it doesn't have the massive hype train around it that The Force Awakens did. But it still made a very significant amount.
And I would say that the Force Awakens marketing campaign, I think, was a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
Just because, as you said, they're bringing back Star Wars for a new generation. And it was much more lighthearted marketing as well.
Oh, for sure, yeah. The Last Jedi was very, very focused on the red.
Yes.
In a lot of, like, obviously we see that with the title sequence, and then all the posters, they were wearing, like, red garments and stuff like that. Just looking towards next week's box office, I believe, a lot of people think it's crazy, but I think The Last Jedi will have a significant drop. I think it'll be close to 60%. And while some people will say, like, it's a box office juggernaut, it's not going to drop that much, to drop 50% would mean it would haul in $110 million. And that's, to make, 9 figures in your second weekend is insane. Credit The Force Awakens did it, but again, this is not going to make as much as The Force Awakens second weekend. Also, while people will scoff at this idea, we have The Greatest Showman and Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, coming out this weekend. And while people will be like, they don't stand a test against Star Wars, don't get me wrong, I believe Star Wars will still be number one, but Jumanji's getting really good reviews.
Yeah, it's gotten very good reviews.
The Rock is one of 2 movie stars left in Hollywood, I believe. Him and Tom Cruise are the only ones where their name alone attached draws box office. Yeah. And then The Greatest Showman, while the reviews coming out aren't as strong.
They're not as strong as what a lot of people were expecting.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's lighthearted musical around Christmas time. I still think that will make a pretty good amount of money. Zac Efron's not a proven draw at the box office, but paired with an A-lister like Hugh Jackman, you never know. So that's why I believe The Last Jedi will have a pretty significant drop, which will not attest to the movie's quality. It will just competition,
Do you think the fan reviews of not liking the movie are going to affect it at all?
I think that will lead some people to not be as urgent to see this one.
I think that's a little concerning. In my opinion. I feel like I haven't seen it yet, but I'm assuming I'm going to like it regardless. I mean, from what I heard, it sounds like I'm going to like this movie.
For sure,
But, people who, are hating on it for being different, I don't like.
Just to go back, if you haven't listened to our Last Jedi 2-parter review, don't get me wrong, I do really like this movie, and I like it the more I think about it, but while The Force Awakens, the whole marketing campaign, and the movie in general kind of relied on nostalgia, this movie is not very nostalgic. And, the one of the main drawing points is the return of Luke Skywalker. But this is not Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, but I think that makes sense.
For the story, I don't want to get too much into a Last Jedi review, but for the story it makes sense, but that's where fan criticism comes, and I'm of the belief that your criticism is warranted. If you go into this movie expecting one thing and you don't get it, you don't have to turn a blind eye and say it was still a good movie regardless. If you stupid metaphor, but if you order some chicken tenders and you get a steak, of course the steak is better, but if you wanted chicken tenders...
You wanted chicken tenders.
I know. It sounds silly, but I feel like the metaphor works in this case.
Yeah.
At least. Any final thoughts on the top 5 from this past weekend's box office?
I guess, it makes sense that Justice League is still kind of hanging on for dear life. But that's all, really.
Yeah. Just looking at, further down the list, The Shape of Water coming in at number 12. It's supposed to be a big Oscar movie. And the fact that it's...
Well, big Oscar movies never really make that much. I mean, think about it.
That's true.
Moonlight didn't make that much money, I don't believe.
$3.8 million domestically grossed with a production budget unreleased, but it is definitely pretty expensive considering this is Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
And his movies are never cheap. Looking back to the one with Tom Hiddleston... Crimson Peak.
Oh, yeah.
Crimson Peak, very expensive movie. Kind of was in the horror genre and I believe it bombed actually at the box office.
Bombed. It didn't perform well.
All right, so that's going to round out our weekend box office update, and we will be back again to discuss next week and just we'll see how The Last Jedi stands in its second weekend.
Yep.
All right, our first news topic, I almost forgot to put this in the show notes, but I want to talk about the official Disney Fox deal.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it sounds redundant at this point because I feel like we've been talking about this week after week, but this was not a deal that was going to be made overnight. This was, I think the rumors started about a month ago.
Yep.
and it kind of, in my opinion, came out of nowhere. I'm not in the business
it
aspect.
did kind of come out of nowhere.
That Fox was, the owners were looking to sell.
I mean, we did kind of talk about how like we were going to hear news soon, but I didn't realize how soon.
I was thinking by the end of January, to be honest, because it's a big deal to be made. The official price was $52.4 billion that Disney bought Fox for. By comparison, people were freaking out when they bought the rights to Star Wars for $4 billion.
Yeah.
And that sounded like a steep price, especially because to make their money back, they would need to make $4 billion. And by the estimates with Rogue One and The Force Awakens...
And merchandise,
they're probably close to, if not breaking even with that deal, and they've only begun to scratch the surface of what they're going to do with Star Wars. But this deal with Fox, like, they have to be pumping out properties to be making their money back. But Disney's not. This was not a roll of the dice for Disney.
It is very calculated.
This was very like they're trying to get in the streaming service game, as it seems everyone is, and if they want to heighten and deepen their what's the word I'm looking for?
Library?
Yeah, library. I don't know why I blanked on that, but they're looking to deepen their library of content. This was a very smart purchase.
They now own, Alien. Think of that. Disney owns the Alien and Predator movies.
Yeah.
They own The Simpsons.
They own sports, too.
Yeah,
they own Fox Sports. They already owned ESPN, and so now they own Fox Sports.
They just own all the sports.
I know they don't have Fox News. That was a part of the deal.
Which makes sense. I don't think anyone would want to buy Fox News.
Disney wants any attachment to any political aspect, which makes complete sense from a business and just philanthropical standpoint, if that's the word.
But they have the X-Men and the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that's the big news.
And we were talking about
We've been talking about for the past few weeks.
Galactus could be a thing.
Yes.
It seems very likely now.
That was my theory.
That could happen.
I wanted at the end of not this Infinity War, but the one that comes out in 2019, which remains untitled at this point. I wanted the end credit scene to be a giant, a big budget $10 million end credit scene where we get Galactus. We know of his arrival and that he consumes a planet or something. Yeah. And so now, because Marvel owns the rights, so that's what I believe they will do. I believe the next big bad that they will go through multiple phases. We probably won't even see till 2022
I do think they're going to do the Skrulls first with Captain Marvel and that.
Yes, and I believe I think they will introduce.
That's gonna be like the Hydra. That's gonna be like the Hydra. Because like they have Hydra and Thanos. They'll be like the Skrulls and Galactus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm really kind of confused on what they're gonna do with the X-Men property because you have such an established X-Men universe.
They have confirmed that X-Men will be joining the MCU, but is it X-Men joining the MCU or is it MCU introducing the X-Men?
But they did say Deadpool would be released under the Disney label as a rated R movie.
Yes. Deadpool will continue to be rated R, which is good news.
I think if they could keep one character, they'd keep Deadpool.
Oh, because Deadpool's only gotten started. Because yes, don't get me wrong, with Apocalypse they just recast all the new X-Men, but we've seen them on screen before. We've seen multiple versions, old, young, middle-aged.
I feel like they'd choose different X-Men.
Yeah, and I don't think any of these actors were really...
Professor X, though, that's such an integral character. To not have Patrick Stewart play him again.
I feel like Patrick Stewart's done after Logan, though.
Yeah. It's weird. They're going to have to do some
spoilers for Logan. He is done.
Yeah, I saw Logan.
Yeah,
I eventually saw Logan.
Yeah.
No, but I feel like the Fantastic Four would be much easier to integrate. They can already be there. They can already have their superpowers, whatever.
Right.
We're in this world that they can do that. The X-Men is going to be very difficult because the X-Men are this huge thing that are all of a sudden going to be apart.
People gravitated towards the X-Men more than the Avengers because they were more of a knit group. Yeah. It was the X-Men before it was Cyclops and Jean Grey. You look at the Avengers and you look at it as a team up where a big team up of all these different superheroes. Like X-Men, it was X-Men and then the individual characters after.
Yeah, it's just going to be very difficult for them, I think, to integrate characters that we've seen before and we have faces connected. I do not think they're going to be able to do Cyclops for a while because Cyclops